Live from the Scripps Studios, this is 10 News.
California may stagger the reopening of schools during the coronavirus pandemic. Good evening. I'm Steve Atkinson. That is just one of the suggestions proposed by the state superintendent as he outlined plans for the upcoming school year. As our 10 News reporter Rena Nakano explains, some parents are skeptical.
Distance learning isn't for everyone. For Jean Marie Arce's son Jeffrey, the lack of interaction has been frustrating.
He's trying to upload work and it's taking forever.
The freshman at Hilltop High School has been adjusting to this new style of learning since March. But Tony Thurman, the state superintendent of public instruction, says this may become the new normal come fall.
Some school districts might choose to open in a hybrid model where there's some in-class instruction and where there is still some distance learning.
Wednesday morning, Thurman addressed the future of California schools, beginning with the fiscal strain. Last week, the governor announced that the state is down $54 billion in revenue because of the pandemic. Of that, K-12 and community colleges will lose $18 billion in the state's minimum funding guarantee.
Every time money is being taken away from some kind of entity, it's always from the education. That hurts the students.
The superintendent also says that fall start dates are not set by the state, they're set by individual school districts. Some are planning for shifts for students, some going to the AM session, the others going to an afternoon session.
So that school campuses can reopen with social distancing provisions.
Arce says there's no way that would work for her family.
Try and get my son off to school while I'm at work is going to be absolutely crazy for us.
And to bridge the learning gap caused by the pandemic, some districts may offer summer programs. Whatever happens, Arce hopes for a more interactive solution so kids like her son can feel like students again.
He's over it. Like, he's ready to go back to school.
Rena Nakano, 10 News.
Once those schools do reopen, the superintendent says that all students, teachers, and staff may have to wear masks before entering the campuses. Meantime, graduating seniors will get that end of the year celebration they have been looking forward to, but with some modifications. Today, county leaders said that drive-through or drive-up graduations are allowed, but only if public health guidance is followed.
Those are allowable and can proceed provided there's no exiting of the vehicle. There's no opening of snack bars, bookstores, or any type of concession stand. There's no opening of restrooms. There are no spectators. And only members of the same household may be in the vehicle together. Dr. Wooten, our public health team, has been in contact with school districts surrounding some of those individual things they would like to do, and she has issued that guidance.
Supervisor Fletcher says that events like drive-up church services, protests, and other graduation-type events are also allowed, but again, only if people do follow the public health guidance. San Diego County public health leaders think the potential reopening of some local casinos is a bad idea for the public's health. Both Viejas and Sequan casinos have recently announced plans to reopen. Since the casinos are on tribal land, they fall under federal jurisdiction. Dr. Wilma Wooten says the county is working with the CDC and talking with casinos to see if they can prevent the reopening. Viejas said it plans to open next Monday, Sequan next Wednesday. And here's a look at the latest coronavirus numbers in our county. 117 new cases were reported today, bringing our total to 5,278. And 5 new deaths were reported today. That brings the county's total now to 194. And there are new questions about the government's response to the coronavirus pandemic after yesterday's Senate hearing. As ABC's Alex Perche reports, states that already started reopening are now having second thoughts.
As the president urges states to get back to work, new questions about the country's readiness to reopen.
If you think that we have it completely under control, we don't.
Dr. Anthony Fauci testifying before the Senate from his modified quarantine yesterday. The Trump administration has said the country is where it needs to be on testing. But Senator Mitt Romney calling out coronavirus task force member Admiral Jawad for his public statements on the issue.
You celebrated that we had done more tests and more tests per capita even than South Korea. But you ignored the fact that they accomplished theirs at the beginning of the outbreak, while we treaded water during February and March. I find our testing record nothing to celebrate whatsoever.
At least 45 states have started the process of reopening, many not meeting the White House's own multi-step guidelines to do so, guidelines that include testing and contact tracing.
You say the states shouldn't open too early, but then you don't give us the resources to succeed. You work for a president who is frankly undermining our efforts to comply with the guidance that you've given us. And then the guidance that you have provided is criminally vague.
But as many states around the country ease restrictions, some are pumping the brakes. In Georgia, one of the first states to push to reopen, the governor now issuing a new executive order saying live performance venues, bars, and nightclubs must remain closed through May.
We believe that waiting a little bit longer will enhance health outcomes.
And in California, where many parts of the state are moving into phase 2 of reopening, LA County pressing pause.
We know with all certainty that we would be extending health officer orders for the next 3 months.
The nation's most populous county recommending its stay-at-home orders be extended, possibly until deep into the summer. Washington, D.C. also amongst those stressing caution before reopening as coronavirus cases have steadily climbed here. The mayor now extending D.C.'s stay-at-home order until June 8th. Alex Perche, ABC News, Washington.
House Speaker Nancy Pelosi is defending a $3 trillion price tag for the Democrats' pandemic relief package. She says it is what's needed to confront the virus and economic collapse.
American people are in pain. It's heartbreaking, the numbers of people who are dying and who are infected, and we have to address it, and we have to address it in a big way. And that's a big price tag, but the American people are worth it.
The package includes $1 trillion for state and local governments, $200 billion for essential workers' hazard pay, and $75 billion for testing. The package also includes up to $6,000 in direct payments to households. It's headed to a House vote on Friday, but the Senate says it won't consider more aid until June. Today, Governor Gavin Newsom turned his focus from COVID-19 to another major issue here in California, our wildfire season. My co-anchor Kimberly Hunt is live from her home studio with the critical air support the state is getting this year. Kim.
Steve, CAL FIRE is predicting many months ahead of heightened fire danger here in California, and all of that being in the wildland areas which are so dry right now. This year, the state of California has had below average rain and snow over last year, so there is a lot of dry brush out there to burn. And Governor Gavin Newsom says that the state has been preparing for this, even in the midst of COVID pandemic. We now have additional support, both on the ground and in the air.
By July of this year, we will have an additional 26 new engines all throughout the state of California, including 4 incident command units that will also be deployed by July 1st. We're going to have other equipment, even outside of just these engines, and they include new Black Hawk helicopters. You may recall we promoted the procurement of 12 Black Hawk helicopters. We're not going to walk that back. It's just too important in terms of our mutual aid and public safety in the state of California. I want folks to know those helicopters are now arriving. The first one came in October of last year. In fact, it was just used in that red fire up in Tehama County. These Black Hawks are extraordinary. They provide faster suppression capacity, a more robust ability in terms of number of gallons of water that they're able to disperse. They're safer for our personnel in terms of redundancy, double twin turbine engine. I can go on and on with the specs of these. I think they're S701 Black Hawks, but 12 of them are coming in.
And just this week, California had 246 wildfires. The governor says we also had a 60% increase in wildfires this year compared to last. Newsom is proposing nearly $86 million for CAL FIRE to hire critical personnel before the peak of the fire season. That would be an additional 600 people. That would beef up the staff there. All of this will be in the budget that the governor says will come out tomorrow. He's also saying that he needs help in terms of money from the federal government to help pay for all of this, but saying that a lot of this land is federal land and he wants that help in paying for all of this. Steve.
Another great concern during this pandemic. Kim, thank you. Healthcare workers protested downtown today for the release of immigrant detainees in Otay Mesa. A man in ICE custody died from COVID-19 last week. He was diabetic and considered a high-risk patient of that disease. Demonstrators say that they are keeping their protests small in order to maintain social distancing. Today's protest is part of a national campaign aimed at getting ICE to release detainees because of the pandemic. The head of Homeland Security took a tour of our border today. Acting Secretary Chad Wolf visited the San Ysidro port of entry, and our TEDS reporter Jennifer De La Cruz joins us live. Jen, he said that he wanted to check in on how agents were adjusting to the pandemic.
That's right, Steve. Just like every other industry has had to adapt to the times in this pandemic, it's no different for our agents along the border. They're working under new guidelines in unprecedented times, and Secretary Wolf today said all of the agents here in San Diego are rising to that challenge. Acting Secretary Chad Wolf took an aerial tour of our southern border today. Part of his mission was checking in on the progress of the new border wall. He says we're making great progress on construction with more than 180 miles already built. Wolf says they're on track to build another 450 by the end of this year. His visit also comes as a way to check in on agents who have had to adapt to new safety guidelines during the pandemic. In ICE detention facilities, Wolf says they've released 900 detainees nationally that are at high risk of contracting the virus. They've also implemented more cleaning and social distancing measures. And at the border, Wolf says the changes they have made so far seem to be working, with traffic reduced by 75%.
We put restrictions in place early on during the pandemic, both with our northern border with our Canadian partners, as well as here on the southwest border with our Mexican partners, to restrict non-essential travel coming across that border in a pandemic environment.
As of right now, those restrictions are set to expire by May 21st, but today Secretary Wolf says they will likely be extending that timeline. Jennifer De La Cruz, 10 News.
Jen, thank you. Construction deadlines for the new San Diego State Mission Valley Stadium may be delayed. That's because the city and the university's negotiation team have not been able to come to terms on buying the land. San Diego State had said in order to meet its goal of a 2022 fall opening, it would need the city to take up the issue by its May 19th meeting. But in a statement to 10 News, Council President Pro Tem Barbara Bree indicated it's not on the agenda. She went on to say the university has complied with all the terms of Measure G, and she called out the mayor and the city attorney, demanding they give a public explanation why an agreement can't be considered next week. Right now, a hero's welcome home for a Coronado teenager who was shot during a jewelry sale that went wrong. It happened earlier this month along Orange Avenue. 2 men got away. Our tennis reporter Laura Acevedo joins us on this story. And Laura, the victim was just released from the hospital.
Yeah, Stephen, we are standing outside of his home, and I want to show you we are along 7th in Coronado, and he is still out here surrounded by a lot of his neighbors, a lot of his family members, as he was just released from the hospital. And I want to show you some of that homecoming just moments ago. Coronado cheerleaders lined the streets, and others held signs that said "Love Jacob." Now, Jacob was shot over a week ago while selling jewelry to 2 men he met through a buying-selling app. The 2 men robbed the 2 pieces that he was selling, and Jacob was shot in the back. Now, he spent over a week in the hospital and was released today, and we did speak to him moments ago. He had not seen his parents since all of this had happened because of COVID-19. Now, listen to what he had to say about being home.
And it's just overwhelming. The amount of support that I have from everybody is just, I can't fathom it. I mean, you know, I got to see my parents for the first time due to the COVID restrictions, and when they came to get me at the hospital, and I just broke down because I didn't know if I'd see them again. And it's just spread positivity. And just always, always, always be grateful for every little thing that you have.
Just a very positive 18-year-old that is lucky to be back home. Now, he says that he wants people to learn from him and hug your loved ones while you can and appreciate them while you can. He says that he is lucky to be here and that he feels like he has a new mission in life. He says he doesn't know what that is yet, but he is looking forward to making the best of it. Now, he is back home. He does have a long road to recovery, 4 to 6 weeks of therapy, and we are told that he is receiving the support from his community here in Coronado. Reporting live, Laura Acevedo, 10 News.
Spread positivity. That's a good start to that mission. Laura, thank you. A church in Chula Vista is suing Governor Gavin Newsom for not including places of worship in stage 2 of the state's reopening phase.
People in our communities rely on churches for their mental well-being, their emotional well-being, their spiritual well-being.
The precautions they're ready to take to keep churchgoers safe. And there's been a surge in the number of complaints over airline ticket refunds. The proposed legislation to make airlines offer those refunds to all during the pandemic. And a local professor says the pandemic will have a negative effect on children. The letter she wrote that caught the attention of the U.S. Senate. We're back in 90 seconds.